So you probably already know how to spot the most common eBay scams that we see as sellers, like partial refunds or fake returns, that kind of thing. But there's a different kind of scam happening that almost nobody is talking about, and it doesn't even come from a buyer. It comes from other sellers. And the scam works because it's almost hidden. You never really see it happen. And in fact, they may have already scammed you without you even realizing it. So today I'm going to show you exactly how that scam works, how to spot it, and how to protect yourself. So let's dig in. Hello and welcome back to my weekly show where I talk about the ups and downs and in-betweens of selling on eBay. I've got a packed show for you today. I went to a bunch of garage sales and picked up some pretty decent stuff, so we're going to talk through that. I've also got another live show coming up this Thursday. This week, I'm bringing on Harry Tornado. Maybe you know this guy. Do you recognize this guy? I don't know. That's Thursday here on YouTube live at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, Mountain. You're on your own. I have no idea. Then, of course, we'll talk through my numbers for the week. Had a pretty decent week, and then we'll talk through my top 10 sales. But for right now, let's jump right back into this scam. Most eBay sellers already know how to spot the common scams that we run across. The most obvious one is the partial refund scam, and I'm sure you've dealt with it before, where a buyer buys something from you, then sends you a message claiming that it arrived damaged or that it wasn't as described, and they just want some money back. Usually they use some version of the line, "What can we do about this?" after describing some problem with the item that you're pretty sure is made up. And sometimes these buyers are legit, but pretty often they're just not. And you can usually tell when it sounds like they're probably, making something up. They still want to keep whatever they bought. They don't want to send it back. They just want a discount after buying, and they're hoping you as the seller will do anything to please them and avoid getting negative feedback. But this scam's really easy to beat. You just don't offer partial refunds. It's that easy. If something's actually wrong with whatever the person bought, the buyer will have no issue opening up a return and sending the item back when you ask them to. And those that are trying to scam you, they're going to protest and threaten all sorts of things, but you just don't need to take the bait. If they want to return it, great, they can send it back. Otherwise, they're out of luck. And only after you've received the item back do you issue any sort of refund. So beating the partial refund scam is as easy as that. And the false return scam, it's a little bit less common, a little bit harder to deal with. And that's when a buyer opens up a return and ships something back to you, but it's not the item that you sent. Sort of a classic return fraud. But the truth is that one, it's extremely rare. Out of like tens of thousands of sales in my career, I can count on one hand how many times it's happened to me, and every time eBay has sided with me. I've literally never lost money on that scam, not even once. Usually eBay ends up refunding the buyer too, which sucks, but it doesn't come out of my balance, so eBay can spend their money how they want. So most experienced sellers, they just don't worry too much about scams because they just don't happen all that often, and they're just fairly easy to spot and easy to handle when you do spot them. But what most sellers don't realize is that not all scams come from buyers. Some of the most subtle and most effective scams on eBay are actually coming from other sellers. And that's what makes them so dangerous. Like, they don't even need to contact you. They don't need to open up a return or bug you about a partial refund or send you back a brick in the mail or contest the charges on their credit card. So it can be almost impossible to spot if you don't know what you're looking for. And basically, they can influence your behavior and take your money without ever interacting with you directly, which is pretty wild. Now, in order to understand how this scam works, you need to know that on eBay, sold doesn't always mean paid for. Like, just because an item shows up in a sold comp, it doesn't mean the buyer actually completed the transaction. If the seller doesn't require immediate payment, which is a setting that they can choose when listing, somebody can click buy it now or be the winning bidder, which triggers the sale, but then never actually pay. And that sale will show up in the sold listings to anyone checking comps, and it looks real. And that little detail, right, that gap between being sold and being paid for is exactly what allows this scam to work. So let's start with an example you're probably familiar with. Now, to be clear, this isn't the scam that I'm actually talking about today, but it lays the groundwork for what's actually happening, and it helps explain how it works. So stick with me for a minute, and I'll show you where all this leads. So go to eBay, search for something like Beanie Baby or Black Diamond Disney VHS, and check the sold listings. You're going to see a lot of examples that are selling for thousands of dollars each. But the thing is, these Beanie Babies, they're basically worthless. So clearly something sketchy is going on here, but what is it? Why are there sold comps for worthless items stretching into the thousands of dollars each? Now, a lot of people say it must be evidence of money laundering, but I don't think that theory holds up really. Laundering only works if you can move large amounts of money anonymously and get it back clean, and eBay makes that almost impossible. Even with a fake name, you still need a real banking information and a verified account. You need a valid social security number to get payouts, and if you move more than $20,000 in the year, eBay's going to report that to the IRS. On top of that, you're giving what, like 15% in fees just to shuffle your money around in a circle with a full paper trail. It just doesn't make sense, you know? Now, I'm not a criminal, but I have seen Breaking Bad, and I have to imagine that there are much safer ways to launder money out there. So what's really going on? It's market manipulation. Here's how it works. Somebody creates a fake sold listing for a worthless item, let's say like a common Beanie Baby. They list it for $5,000, they have a friend or a secondary account buy it, but never complete the payment, or just cancel it after the fact. Now that fake sale shows up in sold comps and it looks real. Then they list an identical Beanie Baby for like $200 and point to the $5,000 fake comp as proof of value. Or maybe they pull up sold comps on their phone at a flea market or at a garage sale or wherever, and they try to pass that off as evidence of why someone should buy theirs for like $50. To someone who doesn't know better, it looks like an opportunity to make a lot of money. You even see thrift stores fall for this one, right? They put a few Beanie Babies behind the glass, price them at a couple $100s each, not because they're trying to scam you, but because they're blindly trusting the sold comps and think they're actually worth some money, but they're not. And I'm guessing there are some newer resellers out there who make the mistake of buying them only to find out later that they wasted their money, which sucks. And this is just the surface, because some sellers are using the same strategy, but in reverse. And this is much more difficult to spot and way more likely to affect you directly, and maybe it already has. So to understand how this scam works, we need to flip that Beanie Baby example on its head. Instead of inflating the value of an item, some sellers are doing the opposite. They're deflating the value on purpose. And let me show you what I mean. Take a game like Pokemon Heart Gold for the Nintendo DS. It's a high demand item with a steady resale market. But if you check sold comps, you're going to see something strange. Some copies sold for around $40, while others sold for about $150. Same exact game, same condition, no obvious differences. Now, in some cases, price variances make sense, like maybe one included the manual, or the condition is worse, or it came with the original box, or whatever. But in this case, these are nearly identical items, so what's going on here? Well, some sellers are planting artificially low sold comps to trick other sellers into thinking that's the going rate, and so you come along with your own copy of Pokemon Heart Gold or whatever, you do a quick price check before listing and see a few recent $40 sales. And if you're not steeped in the video game reselling industry, you may not realize that this game's actually worth way more. You assume that's the market value because that's what most of the comps say, so you list it at $39.99 and it sells instantly. Well, guess who bought it? And once they get your item, they relist it at the actual rate of $150, or they sell it somewhere else, or they get a sweet deal on a desirable game for their own collection. Either way, you just got scammed out of $100 and you probably had no idea. Now, in some cases, the games being sold for under market value are likely not genuine. There's fake Pokemon games everywhere. But selling counterfeit games is illegal, of course, and though it still happens, and it happens all the time. And since sellers can't openly disclose in the listing that something is fake without outing themselves as criminals, price becomes the only signal that they can use. So sometimes the difference between a $40 sold comp and a $150 sold comp is authenticity. But so many buyers, they just can't tell. So maybe some buyers know what they're getting, but most don't. And this only makes things harder for us legitimate sellers because it muddles the comps even further. You know, you're not just up against planted fake sales to manipulate pricing, you're also up against sellers moving counterfeit inventory at low prices, which creates the same effect on sold comps. You see a flood of artificially low data that pulls the perceived market value down. So whether sellers are deliberately manipulating the market or moving fakes or both, the outcome for you is the exact same. You end up trusting inaccurate sold comps and selling your legitimate inventory for well below market value. As an aside, this is another great example of why tools that promise to provide you with accurate pricing for eBay listings, including various AI systems and even eBay's own platform, are often just flat out wrong. The underlying data is messy for so many reasons, and this is one of them. Now, if you look closely, you can spot these market manipulation patterns I'm talking about. And I'm not going to single out any sellers in particular, but if you dig around, you'll find accounts with sales history full of high-value inventory like video games or shoes, and they're all sold at strangely low prices. One that I spotted when I was selling my own copy of Pokemon Heart Gold had literally dozens of authentic, high-value video games apparently sold for a fraction of their true market value. This is either the world's worst reseller or someone who's deliberately manipulating the market for their own benefit. I'll let you decide which one it is. Now, if you're a video game expert and sell in the category regularly, it's unlikely that you're going to fall for this sort of pricing trap because you already have a good sense of what the value is of what you're selling and whether it's authentic or not, but so many of us sell across all categories and come across items that we just aren't experts on. And that's exactly the type of people this market manipulation works on, people who don't have a strong level of domain expertise in the category they happen to be selling in. So, how do you protect yourself from this kind of market manipulation? First, you have to remember sold doesn't always mean paid. If you see some weird looking comps, just know they may not be real sales. And the biggest red flag to look for here is price variance. You know, when you're checking comps and you see identical items selling at wildly different prices, that's a sign to slow down and do a little bit more digging. That kind of spread just doesn't happen without a legitimate reason. And if you can't find that reason, like condition or completeness, it might be a sign someone's gaming the market by either planting fake comps or selling inauthentic goods. Next, you want to look for repeat patterns. You know, if you see a large variance in pricing that can't be explained, you'll want to check out what some of these sellers are actually up to. If they have dozens of sold listings, all priced suspiciously low, that's a pretty good sign they might be planting fake comps across an entire category. That's exactly what I saw, and it's pretty subtle, but the goal is clear. Get sellers like you to underprice your inventory, then scoop it up and flip it later. You may also want to cross-check prices outside of eBay. Like, depending on what you're selling, you can use other tools and marketplaces to check what the value is there. For the video game example, I looked it up on price charting and saw that there was just no way it was only selling for $40. And most categories you sell in have other smaller enthusiast marketplaces that can help you verify which price is legit, like Discogs for media or StockX for shoes. And keep in mind that each marketplace commands its own price, so they're not going to match exactly what you see on eBay, but having a second or even third opinion from other marketplaces will help you figure out what's real and what's fake. If you're selling in a highly competitive category, chances are that if your comp research starts and ends on eBay, you could be vulnerable. Finally, just don't rush it. You know, if something feels off, just take your time and make sure you're not letting something go for way less than it's actually worth. And chances are you've probably experienced the scenario where you list something and it sells immediately. It happens pretty often, actually. And it doesn't always mean you made a mistake. Like, some things just have high demand, or the buyer had a saved search set up for whatever you're selling, but sometimes you just underpriced it. You know, I've done it, everybody has. And most of the time, it's a legitimate pricing mistake, like you undervalue something, or you miss a detail, or you list it too fast, or you make a typo. But when it happens in highly competitive categories like video games or sneakers, it's worth a second look, because sometimes that quick sale isn't just demand, it's the result of someone manipulating the comps behind the scenes and hoping you won't notice. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether you should cancel the sale or not if you suspect foul play. Some sellers have no problem canceling when they realize they made a pricing mistake, especially if it's tied to market manipulation, while others feel like they should honor the sale no matter what. I think it's a personal decision. It's totally up to you. Just know if you do cancel, it's going to ding your account, and you get too many of those cancellations, it can lower your seller status on eBay, so just use that option carefully. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Be careful out there. All right, let's move on. Like I said, I did go to some garage sales this past weekend. I picked up quite a few pretty good things. I also saw some viewers out there, Mark and Morgan. They do have a YouTube channel. Check them out. Let's take a look at what I got. All right, had a decent day at garage sales today. I picked up a lot of stuff, starting with this Incinerator Badger. I ended up getting this guy for $40. They wanted 60, but I bought some other stuff with it, and they basically made it all work for $50 total. So this ended up being $40. At that same garage sale, I picked up some vintage sweatshirts here. This is a Denver, Colorado. I don't know, it's probably worth 15 or 20. This Hard Rock Cafe Las Vegas vintage sweatshirt, really nice and soft. I'm guessing this one's going to be more like $30. And then a nice Disney Mickey and Minnie Classics vintage sweatshirt as well, probably $20 here. Also got this bat for $5. Not really a good deal. I thought it was going to be better than it is. The saying, I think there's no sold comps and there's only one listed for 50, so I'm going to list it. It probably will not sell for a long time, if at all. Might end up redonating this one. Picked up this Sea-Doo, it's like a pull-behind tube type deal. And this thing, I think it's vintage. Looks like it's probably from the 90s. I haven't looked for a date on it, but it's called the Big Kahuna. I couldn't find any exact comps. I paid $5 for it. You'll see it says 10, but I got these two both for $5 each. This thing's probably going to go for decent money. I don't know. I'll flash some comps up on the screen if I can find something similar, but these things will definitely sell. Along with that, also bought this inflatable two-person boat from Intex. It's a 1983 version, so it's pretty old. I'm guessing, hopefully it's okay in there. It's never been opened, and I think it'll probably be worth 50 or $60. We also picked up this Perm for a Day. This is from the 90s. These are like some curler type things. Often these like weird hair products like this can do pretty well. And the comps on these are actually really good. The sell-through rate's good. These will go for probably $30 to $40. We paid $1. I'm a sucker for coffee mugs. This, I just picked it up. I thought it was cool. This policeman coffee mug. It's not worth much money, maybe $15, and it's going to cost a lot to ship. But I kind of collect coffee mugs. I like to buy cool and interesting ones and list them and hold on to them for a while until they sell. Also got this Low Pro crossbody camera bag for $3. A Rothco military backpack here. I paid $5 for this. My guess is it'll go for $35 to $40. This Breville Smart Oven Pro. This thing is not new. It is used. He said he used it a couple times. I haven't opened it up to look at it. It looked pretty clean from the top. I actually, Breville is just a really good brand to look out for. Their stuff is really high dollar. I paid $20, so I think it was definitely worth it. I might put this one on Facebook Marketplace. As much as I hate selling on Facebook Marketplace, this is something that might do well there. If not, I can actually ship it in this box. So it has the styrofoam on the inside. And this was the find of the day right here. Do you remember this from the 90s? I either had this or I really wanted it and never was able to get it when I was a kid in the 90s or late 80s. Tornado Rex. This thing, look at the comps on this. It's just unbelievable how much this thing is worth. The guy said it was complete at the garage sale. I paid $2, by the way. They're almost never complete, so I haven't opened it up. I'll have to check and see how complete it is. If it is, it's going to go for about $300. But if not, it'll go for less, or I'll part it out and make quite a bit of money. So this was a really fun find. I love finding old 80s or 90s vintage toys, kind of from my era as a kid. So this was a really fun one, and we'll see if it's complete. Here we go. Oh no. All right, jumping into my numbers for the last week. I had a gross sale amount of $2,502 and a net sales of $1,718. Another really just solid week. I've been selling so much good stuff lately. It's kind of crazy. It's way above my averages, and so I'm definitely not experiencing any sort of slowdown for the summer. Q3 is coming to an end. Q4 is come right on the horizon, right? Like Q4 starts in like a week. Are you guys ready? But I do this part-time, and these are very good part-time numbers for me, and I'm just having a really good year. My average gross per sale is $56.86. My average net per sale, $37.35. My net profit margin, right at 69%. That's high. My normal net profit margins between 50 to 60, and so that just means for every dollar that I sell, I'm taking home 69 cents. And so those are pretty good margins, especially for eBay. Hopping on down here, spent $122 on new inventory over the past 7 days. The cost of goods that sold, $134. Marketplace fees right at $363 and $269 on shipping labels. Had 36 new listings. My goal is 35 per week, so I got one above my goal. And 44 sales, lots of stuff going out the door. 2 days was my average time to list. That's just the time between purchasing and listing. You want that to be as low as possible. And 2 months is the average time to sell. So that's the time between listing and selling. And so the inventory that I was selling is newer inventory. My average is usually around 3 months. So I'm selling newer inventory, which makes sense. You'll see some of this stuff coming up in my top 10 list. My ROI, look at that, 1,016 average on the week, which is great. My normal average is about 600%. And so my ROI is much higher this week. I'm making a lot more money than I typically do. Let's go ahead and jump into those top 10 sales. These aren't top 10 by net return or anything. It's just some good sales, some interesting sales that I want to talk through, starting with this guy. I don't even know what this is. What is a test ball plug? I think it's probably goes to a toilet, I have to imagine. I don't know anything about this category. But the thing is, you don't need to know exactly what you have to sell it, especially if it's something like this that has all the information you need on the box itself. This thing sold for $24.99. Free shipping. My net return was $11.81. It did take 5 months. This came from my big bulk buy that I made earlier in the year, where I bought a bunch of fixtures, bathroom equipment, fixtures, faucets, things like that. It looks like I had 278 items in this bulk buy. A lot of different, or a lot of multi-quantities though. And so it's actually 191 unique SKUs and 278 units in total. Looks like I've grossed $8,700 from this bulk buy and had a net of $4,059 so far, but I still have 71 items left to sell. It has a list value of $5,383. And so with my margins, that'll end up being about $2,500 to $3,000 of net return after this is all said and done, after I sell the 71 remaining items. Coming in at number 9 is this Buc-ee's Yukon Outfitters Rose Gold water bottle. This thing was new in the box. I got it from a bulk buy. What did it sell for? $36.98. That's $29.99 plus $6.99 in shipping. The net return, $14.76 coming back to me on this one. Buc-ee's is just a very interesting brand to me. You know, you just see people wearing Buc-ee stuff everywhere. They've done an incredible job marketing, and they just have these crazy fans who love a gas station. I don't know, it just sort of boggles my mind, the fact that this brand is so popular, that, you know, $36.98 for a Buc-ee's branded mug. But if you go out anywhere in public, especially like go to a theme park in the Midwest, for example, every third person's got a Buc-ee shirt on, it seems like. It's just an interesting phenomenon. I don't quite understand it, but happy to sell this one for $36.98, $14.76 coming back to me on that one. Coming in at number 8, you just saw this on the garage sale video. I had that Breville oven that I bought for $20, and it did work. I plugged it in, I tested it, everything was good to go, but it had none of the internal racks on the in the unit. I guess they had removed them for some reason and didn't put them back, and so it kind of sucks when you go to a garage sale. They say, oh yeah, it's, you know, basically new, without mentioning that it's missing, you know, a good portion of what should be there. But you know what? It happens. It's not a big deal. I could have checked it before I left, but I didn't, so that's on me. So what I ended up doing, I was going to buy some replacement racks, but they were expensive, and so that was going to up my cost of goods. Basically, I decided instead, you know what? I'm going to part this thing out. So I pulled all the pieces off that I possibly could. I think I got 3 or 4 parts that do sell as replacement parts regularly, and this one sold in 4 hours right away. This is the crumb tray that, you know, kind of goes on the very bottom of this oven, and so it sold really quick. My net return $17.22, so that means, you know, I've almost made my money back on this one, and I've still got a couple replacement parts. Don't take it too hard when you make a mistake like that, because you can just often make your money back without any issue. And I should probably end up making $40 or $50 on this sale after it's all said and done, which is much better, you know, than losing out on 20, for example. Not as good as what I would have made had it sold for like 150 or 80 or whatever it was, but still, you can't win them all. Coming in at number 7 is this Pumpkinhead book. This thing was old. It was the first edition of this book. It sold for $56.98. It was an interesting one. Obviously, it's the right time of year to be selling something like this. But Halloween stuff for me is definitely starting to move. It should be in your store as well. And it's just a great time to be listing stuff like this. This came from a consignment deal, so I didn't make a ton of money on it. The net return for me ended up being $18.70, and then I paid out $18.70 on consignment as well. It's kind of interesting, though. I always sort of pay attention to where I sell these things, and this one sold to a haunted ghost tour in Salem, Massachusetts. And so I don't know what they're doing with it, but I thought that was pretty cool that I got to send it out to that ghost tour. So hopefully they enjoy it. Coming in at number 6, these Apple AirPod Pros. I've got a ton of Apple AirPods right now that I got from a bulk buy. And here's the thing about selling Apple AirPods. Historically, I used to sell them just as full units, you know, as the charger and the left and the right. But I found it attracted not the best buyers, people that made returns, people that were trying to pull one over on you. So what I've done now, what I do with all of the Apple AirPods when I get them is I split them up into left, right, and the charging case as replacements. And I've never had an issue. And so it's a much better way to sell Apple products. These this replacement right earpiece went for $59.99. My net return was $45.29. It's kind of hard to see where the model is on this. There's a very small printout on here. In fact, like I have to use one of like a little jewelry loop, I think is what it's called, a little magnifying glass, to be able to see the tiny writing on these things to understand what model it's for. But often, these are probably some of the better ones, these AirPod Pro second generations. They're relatively new, and that's why I went for $60 just for a replacement one. So had another Apple product go out the door, this Apple Pencil Pro. This thing sold very, very quickly. It was another one where I was like, oh, did I underprice this? Did I maybe misread the sales comps? But it sold for $69.99 in 18 minutes. The net return on this one was $54.70. I checked, and that was just the going rate. These things just have such high demand that they're going to sell very quickly if they're priced right. And they were right around the $70 mark. So $69.99, free shipping, out the door, 18 minutes, no problem. Coming in at number 4 is this Wallabot DIY 2 stud finder. Have you seen these things before? These things are really, really cool. What you do, it's a stud finder, but a little bit different because you pair it with your phone, and you put your phone, it's like the same size as like an iPhone, and you put your phone, like I think that's one of the magnetic MagSafe things that are on the backs of iPhones. And then you run it across the wall, and it acts as like almost like an infrared type camera where you can legitimately see through the wall and see whether you're hitting a stud or see whether it's like a water line or an electrical line, or you can even see like if there's like animals behind the wall. It's a really incredible piece of technology for relatively cheap. This thing sold for $107.99. My net return on it was $79.43. I really wanted to keep it. I just don't have that much of a use for it, but it was a really cool device. But anyway, it's out the door, and I made $80 on it. Coming in at number 3 are these Persol sunglasses. Am I saying that right? Persol. Anyway, these sunglasses, these 649s, just happened to be a very desirable model of sunglasses. And these were not in great condition. So they were not perfect by any means. The lenses were scratched up a decent amount. Even the frames near the ears over there had some considerable scratching. And I priced it low because of that. And $106.98 was low. They were comping out in the closer to $200 to $250 if it was in better condition. But my net return on this one was $83.53. Only took 4 days to sell. I got this one from a bulk buy, lots of different sunglasses, and kind of getting towards the end of when sunglasses season, but we'll see. The thing about sunglasses that I don't quite enjoy all that much about selling is that they tend to be more prone to returns. I think people just like get them and try them on and like, I don't really like it. And I do offer free returns on everything. So I think that's attractive to sunglasses buyers, knowing that they can return it. It's not bad, but the return rate on these are just a little bit higher than my store return rate, and it's okay. Coming in at number 2, check this out. Schlage Mortise Body Office Lock. I got 2 of these at a garage sale. What did I even pay? I don't even remember. Yeah, $5 a piece. This one just sold for $179 and free shipping. My net return on it was $137.74. But look, for both of them, the net return $290.30 for spending $10 at a garage sale 5 months ago. Just crazy. I always keep an eye out for locks or office equipment like this. And in fact, I called it a garage sale. It was like, it's because I was out going to garage sales, and it was a citywide garage sale, but it was like I guess it was like a contracting company had opened up like their small warehouse and were just trying to get rid of a bunch of stuff. And I bought a lot of stuff there. These were 2 of those things, but just an incredible net return on these office locks, $290.30. Just pretty crazy. That leaves us with number 1. Check this out. This sealed, rare Christian Dior Barbie doll from the 90s, 1996. If y'all remember, I got this at a garage sale not that long ago. I spent $100 and I got a ton of stuff. And this was one of those things. And it was just, I was really shocked that I was able to find something like this at this garage sale. I don't know what was going on with this garage sale. I think it might have been a dealer of some sort. Maybe they had an antique booth that they were just like done with. But I was just making a pile of stuff. I was adding stuff. And then once I was done making that pile, the guy kind of leafed through it, looked at everything, was like, how about $100? I was like, sounds great. This alone sold for $225. And what did I give it on the cost of goods? I gave it a $3.45 cost of goods. That's because I basically split everything evenly. I think I ended up with like 31 different items, whatever 100 divided by 345 is. I ended up with that many items. So I just split the cost of goods evenly across all, which gave this one a net return of $175.54. And it was an international sale going through the international shipping program out to Australia. So I really like that because 1, I don't have to ship it to Australia. I just ship it to eBay's warehouse somewhere outside of Chicago. They ship it the rest of the way. And there's no returns. So even if this person in Australia decides they don't want it or gets lost or broken, through the international shipping program, eBay covers all of that. So I just don't have to worry about it in any way whatsoever. So this sale is a done deal. Best sale of the week, $225 for this sealed Christian Dior Barbie from almost 30 years ago. Is that right? 30 years? Yeah, almost 30 years ago. And I made $175.54. Not bad. All right, lights out. I have no idea what I'm talking about on Lights Out today. One thing, I've been creating more content on both TikTok and Instagram, basically the same content on both. There's just a lot of things that I run across in my day-to-day reselling world where it just doesn't warrant a full YouTube video. And so I've just been messing around trying to make some short form content. So if you're on TikTok or if you're on Instagram, you can find me there. It's usually just like some behind the scenes stuff, right? Stuff when I'm walking around in my little warehouse. or something interesting happens that I want to tell people about right away instead of telling them during my weekly Monday video. So I don't know, I'm kind of having fun creating this type of content. It's just like creating the long form content like you just watched. It's a slog, it takes a lot of time and effort to put together, to come up with the ideas and to record and to edit and to publish. But with short form, I can just like pick up my phone and do it. So I'm just sort of experimenting more with that. So I'll leave some links in the description below to find me on TikTok and on Instagram. If that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and subscribe over there. If you're not subscribed here on YouTube, because most of my viewers, it's kind of weird. Like, I think it's like 60% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed. So subscribe everywhere. Really, actually really does. It helps me out. It helps me keep making this content. So anyway, check me out on these other platforms. Maybe you'll find some of that interesting. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.